Right. So
That
it'd be
is,
like that.
I do want that
My
one.
son didn't want to
Yes.
go.
All right, good.
It tells you I don't even own an
Yeah, he
iPad.
was sick too,
No,
but he's
huh?
fine.
How have
We
you
didn't
gotten
go,
by
we didn't
so
go. But we've gone, like, it's the first time in like 10 years.
Just,
But like, it's all
yeah.
right.
I don't need it. I don't need it.
12 and 10. Oh. Yeah. I know. My mom
That's
was
good.
saying,
That's good.
young families with little
But then you know those
I need to be on screen time.
I know.
You were on seating.
No, I did not go to my kid.
I spend my time with my kids.
It's good.
Hey, Al, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to the party.
Thank you.
You came on a real happening night.
The last one is
Promotion or something. They always show
Brought
up
up your families
with,
and
they always show up with a crew,
I feel
yeah.
like I started to read this one, but I guess I didn't.
They support their own.
The charge.
These must be those must be the boots.
And you were like 18 and then.
No.
Yeah. I started. I don't know. I literally started to read this, and I just.
Well,
This
no, I haven't been
would
there.
have.
What happened is that
No.
I started,
Yeah. Yeah.
How'd your finance committee meeting go? It was, I'm sorry, I went to the general government
Yeah,
one
no, I know.
instead.
You were double booked. What were you going to do?
That's right.
We understand where her, loyalty lies.
Oh, yes, yeah. Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for helping. And if I'm correct, John Burnett, maybe I'll call on you to come save the day. Yeah, right.
Okay,
So, I mean, that was really, Casey explained it further to us.
Oh, good.
You know, Grace talked a little bit more about the funds and
Good.
so I think it makes sense.
Right.
So it's we're good. It's just those grants and the timing and everything. I don't know that I can repeat that back.
Oh, yeah,
That's-
no.
that's a lot.
Right. That's why
Yes.
That's what we got to
we
be.
refer to, yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm happy to hear.
Yes.
Very often ask.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
How are you? I'm good.
Yeah.
I did not expect.
It's 7 o'clock for the promotion.
Yeah. No.
7 o'clock.
Hopefully,
Ready, Dan?
it may be an eye opener, but 99% of the meetings here, just we always have something.
That's what I assume. Yes.
Questions, or is it different people every time?
When there's some controversy.
Does it every single time? Just.
Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to see so many people here at our meeting, our workshop meeting, this first meeting of your Board of Trustees in June. We invite you back to each and every one of our meetings, but I imagine that won't happen. Anyway, but it is a pleasure to see you here this evening. So please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Clerk Horvath, may we have the roll call, please?
Certainly, President Gallagher. Trustee Chen.
I'm here.
Trustee Fink.
Here.
Trustee John.
Here.
Trustee Rudolph.
Here.
Trustee Sifferman.
Here.
And Trustee Terrell.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Having read the agenda, does any trustee have an addition or deletion to tonight's agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to a very happy event, the swearing in of the Department of Fire and EMS, two lieutenants, Lieutenant Kevin Gay and Lieutenant Carl Hammond. Chief?
Gallagher and Board of Trustees. It's hard to get through the crowd back there. Don't block the exit, Captain, all right? You are in charge of fire prevention here. As you said, this is a very exciting night for us. It always is when we do the promotions. This one is kind of unique because usually when we do our promotions, it's a replacement. And as you know from the memo, we did get permission to add 2 additional positions. We just had our academy graduation over the weekend, brought in 10 new firefighters into the program, which is awesome. And so we were looking for succession planning, which was one of the goals of not only the village, but also the fire department. And felt like we had two individuals that were on the lieutenant's list that really were exemplary people and would look for the future for the department. Also would help us to supervise the new people that we had coming in. So there are two people we're going to go through tonight, and I'm going to start off with Lieutenant Kevin Gase. They both were hired back as part of the same academy back on January the 9th of 2012. And so just fittingly, they're both going to be promoted the same night. Both of them come with tremendous amount of certifications. You saw that in the memo that was put together. I should have put down the certifications that Kevin does not have, not the ones that Kevin does have. And as you see, and I'm not going to read through all of them, he's well-rounded. Kevin has always been a go-getter from the time he came on our department as a paid-on-call, operated under the contract as a firefighter medic with us, and then we could have been more proud than when he went to Carroll Stream as a full-time firefighter. In addition, when he made that move, one of the things that's a difficult challenge when you go on to a full-time department somewhere else is we have a residency requirement, and sometimes we lose great folks who move away and to move on with their career. Kevin, when he was looking for permanent housing, made a point to try and find a place, even though it wouldn't be as economically feasible, so he could remain on the Western Springs Fire Department in addition to his career job. That's not on this memo, but I think that's incredibly important to point out about Kevin and his character. He holds a bachelor's degree from Southern Illinois, loads of fire-related seminars. He's done huge, was an explorer, and now is a role model for the explorers and big in that program. And he instructs at our fire academy, and it's neat because they have somebody who's been through the academy and now can talk to the people who are in there about, yeah, I've been where you've been, and I've been afraid that I wasn't going to make it like you were, and here's how you get there. And for them to look at him as a shining star and now a lieutenant is very, very important. So I'm going to ask Kevin to come up. I will ask the village clerk to read the oath, and then we're going to have a couple of family members pin Kevin. And Kevin said he wanted 45 minutes to speak. I thought that was over the top, so we will give him a couple seconds to speak. So, Lieutenant, if you would come up. Lieutenant, I'm going to give you your first order. Will you please introduce your family? My girlfriend, Bree, my mom and my dad, my grandfather, and my brother and sister. Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, my family and friends and the other friends that came out, and the department members. This doesn't mean anything without you guys. Carl, couldn't ask for a better person.
Kevin's very shy, and the part he left out was he has a brother who was a firefighter, who we were blessed enough to have here in Western Springs. And his dad just retired from LaGrange as the fire chief with an incredibly distinguished career. And when we were in trouble in Western Springs and needed a chief to come before we ever even called, his dad would always be there to help us. So he comes from a rich tradition of an exceptional family as well as a fire service family. So every once in a while I get failure right now. So part of what a chief does. So all right, now let's talk about Lieutenant Hammond. Carl comes with a different kind of experience. You also see his certifications, things to be proud of, but a couple things I wanted to speak about Carl is we are blessed as a combination department with, as you know, most of the people who are in the department are professionals in other areas and then give their time back to the department. And Carl has done that along with his wife, run their own business, very aware of what he needs to do in terms of being a professional. So Carl brought that from the very beginning, but also a very, very busy schedule. And we asked a lot of Carl because we saw the talents that he provided from an organizational standpoint. We gave him, when Captain Heinzelman retired, one of those jobs that nobody wants, which is scheduling. And when you're scheduling part-time people at family events and everything, it's very difficult. And the wonderful crew you see sitting behind us, the reason the Paid-on-Call model works is people who bend and give of their time. So Carl has been in charge of that. In his role, Kevin will get his own platoon of people. What we've asked Carl to do is take over special projects. We specifically involved him when we replaced our last engine to sit on the spec committee to kind of get his feet wet about what's that like and what to do. So he'll be involved with fleet replacement and other special projects that we do because he's that talented. I will tell you that there isn't anybody in this room that knows Carl that if he says, I want to go that way, won't follow. And that's not a skill that you can teach. That's just one that's born inside. So Lieutenant Hammond, if you'd come up and we will, again, give the oath. I will tell you, this is an outstanding village clerk because every time I took the oath, somebody read it at 100 miles an hour. So he
Carl, boy, that's only because I was instructed early on by you.
Ixnay on the Yankee grave.
All right, Carl, raise your right hand. Having been appointed municipal code I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office according to the best of my ability.
Thank God you guys never read the fine print that's on those things. So that's now, if you would, introduce your family and we'll do your Kenna, you have the floor.
Thank you. Lieutenants, I just want to say congratulations on your well-deserved promotions. The fire department and all of Western Springs is very honored to have such qualified and talented individuals willing to serve within our community. Thank you on behalf of the residents of Western Springs. Thank you for protecting your neighbors. Appreciate it. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. You won't hurt our feelings.
Oh, yeah, he's got, right, he's got a, yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to citizen comments. It looks like there are no citizens left in the room, but if there's someone who would like to address the board, please come up. Seeing none, we'll move on to the consideration of our agenda items. This workshop meeting is when the committees come and report on the work that the committee has done prior to the workshop meeting, starting with the Properties and Recreation Committee. Trustee Chen, welcome.
Actually, we were unable to meet because I was ill last week, so I have no updates from that committee. So.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and we're glad you're feeling better.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to Public Works and Water, Trustee Fink.
Casey, be prepared to save me if I'm not saying these things correctly. So if I can go out of order a little bit, well, the capital summary report, that's enclosed in the packets. I don't know how much you guys want to hear.
Yeah, I would say the highlights.
Okay.
The committee reviewed each of the projects, correct? And,
Yes.
Any highlights, because everybody can review these in preparation for tonight's
Okay.
meeting.
I guess the ones that to make note of would be the standpipe. The standpipe is going to happen more closer to fall because they have to get rid of they have to remove the wireless signals from the top, and that's when the biggest use of will be happening. So it's going to be happening more in the fall. And well number 5 is going to happen again in the fall as well, just because we have the most water usage in the summer, so I thought it'd be more prudent to wait until then to go forward with that. Do you want more information than that, like other than things?
Well, I think with the well, was there a meeting recently, Casey?
And we're plan to start drilling, well, to start preliminarily drilling in the next 3 weeks or so. But Trustee Fink is correct. The construction will last into the fall. There's no doubt about that.
Casey, I get this question from people. When do you think it'll be up and operational?
That's a good question. We're trying to aim for the end of the year, but honestly, it all depends on the drilling. We'll have a better idea once we start getting down there. We're targeting the end of the year, though.
How long will the drilling last?
The drilling, off the top of my head, I want to say I thought it was only 6 weeks of drilling, of the actual drilling process. A lot of the construction is actually building in the casing pipe, and then bringing that up and making sure that the water is what we want. But the drilling I think is only a 6 week to 2 month process.
Okay, we're going to fence all that off within the next week or two?
Absolutely.
And question too about the standpipe, like how, I understand because of the weather and all the rain that has delayed us, how far behind are we? And what's the change in impact on the residents?
Sure, that's a good question. We're not behind per se. We're just pushing the schedule out past the time where we're requiring the most demand out of our system. So pushing it farther into the season, we're just kind of moving the project from one season to another.
Okay.
It should impact the residents in the same capacity that would have initially, which is very little.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
If I may, I just wanted to remind you that there is greater demand in the summer months, so we like to do that when there isn't such a great demand, so.
Okay.
To make sure that we can produce an adequate water supply.
So we may push it out further than what the weather has pushed out.
Well, it's difficult because we can't push it too far because the paint also
need certain
needs to have
temperatures.
a certain temperature also to set, yes. So it is a very complex project. We never have
Only
any
the
easy
weather would
projects.
cooperate.
If only.
The painting's inside and outside?
Yes,
We gotta drain all of that out?
correct.
And out.
Turns out it's probably a good thing we didn't do it this spring with all the rain we've had.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question about the loan commitment letter and the status? Can the project move forward without that?
Oh, no, we've received the loan commitment letter.
It's all done.
Yep.
Oh.
So we're good to go.
Says
Might have
awaiting
been
it to, I see.
We received that actually at the end of last week, maybe after the
Okay.
board packet went out the door.
Oh, good news then.
Yep.
Okay.
Back to you.
I've learned about the sewer system since I attended my one meeting. So there's the Central Avenue reconstruction and storm sewer. I don't know how much, it was all news to me, but that our stormwater and sewer systems are combined, and Central Avenue is kind of special in that it gets funding. Can you explain that for me, Casey? Like, it gets funding from us as well as, is it like federal funding?
Yeah, I can fill you in. So
And so we can, it's a shared cost. That's my take-home message from that.
Yes, yeah, it's actually, the project is in two parts. First, the roadway, and second, the sewer. So we'll start with the roadway first, because that's kind of where everything started. So Central Avenue is what's called a minor collector street. It is specified as such by the Federal Highway Administration. What that basically means is it's a street that connects a major or minor arterial, like 47th Street, to our downtown area, or any other minor collectors that we have, like Hampton Avenue. Because it's a minor collector street, we're allowed to use federal grant funding for the maintenance of that roadway. So back in 2015, we pursued surface transportation grants for the reconstruction of Central Avenue from 47th to Burlington. We received those grants in 2015, but we did not have enough on our local side to match our portion of the project. So the surface transportation grant provided 70% of the cost of Phase 2 engineering, Phase 3 engineering, and construction costs. The village has to come up with a 30% match for Phase 2, Phase 3, and construction costs, as well as Phase 1 engineering costs. So that's the roadway portion of this. The sewer portion, an MWRD grant, which we obtained in January of this year for about $750,000, allows us to build out our sewer system in our combined sewer area. So as Trustee Fink was saying, north of 47th, we have what's called a combined sewer system. All of our stormwater and all of our wastewater go into the same pipe, one single pipe. South of 47th is a separated sewer system, so we have two pipes for each. The problem with a combined sewer system is when it rains, that wastewater doesn't always have a place to go because the sewer system hits capacity and surcharges. Our solution to that is to try to start separating out our combined sewer areas. And the first place we have to start is where we're going to dump the water at the end of the day, and that would be Flag Creek. So the MWRD grant covers the construction of a storm sewer outfall into Flag Creek, which would run along 47th to Central Avenue and then up Central Avenue, and it's basically a backbone for our sewer separation project in Old Town South and portions of Old Town North as well. Again, we received $750,000 in grant funding from that. We also have to have a 30% match, which is about $374,000. So, long story short, we want to continue moving forward with engineering before we hit our project deadline. We have to have our roadway portion of the project bid by May of 2020. And engineering for a project of this scale takes roughly a year, so we need to get started. If we want to use those funds, those grant funds for both projects, we need to get started as soon as possible with Phase 1 engineering, which will be funded primarily by us, only by us. We're the only ones that are allowed to fund Phase 1 engineering. The surface transportation grants won't fund that. They, in short, want us to have skin in the game. They want us to show that we are invested in a project without just dishing out grant funds. So we have to complete phase 1 engineering on our own. Phase 2 engineering is typically grant funded, but because we have to start now and we have to get it taken care of as soon as possible, we can't go through the proper process that the government would prefer for selecting an engineering firm. In that case, they will allow us to push those grant funds. We'll have to fund phase 2, but whatever we would have paid in phase 2 is going to get pushed to be recovered in the construction portion of the project. So those phase 2 engineering funds will be paid by us up front, but recovered later on during construction. I know that's a lot of information, but at the end of the day, what we're looking for is the approval of 2 engineering agreements, both from James J. Bennis and Associates. One for phase 1 engineering for $141,507. The second one for phase 2 engineering, where they will be partnering with Baxter and Woodman as well for $183,098.
Casey, can you describe kind of the current situation for some of the residents that kind of are impacted by just kind of the current state and how that's going to be improved for those residents in particular? I understand this is part of the overall bigger plan that separates the sewer and the water, but as you know, living nearby, I see it. But if you can explain it to everyone, that'd be great.
Yeah, so we have some very well-known flooding issues, or street flooding issues, at around 46th and Central. It's kind of mid-block there. What we have going on in that situation, in that area, is we have a majority of our stormwater from Old Town South and also from a portion of Old Town North, combined water, is all coming down into one pipe that goes down Spring Rock Park, and then some that come off from Central, and it all ends in one spot on Fair Elms and 47th. What we have there is called a combined sewer overflow. We have 4 of those in town, but this one in particular is activated very often. What those are their outlets into Flag Creek for combined sewage that we as a village are allowed to utilize during heavy storm conditions. CSO number 3, which is at 47th and Fair Elms, goes off very often. Any really moderate rain, we will see it go off. So what we want to do is minimize the impact there. Separating out the sewer and creating an outfall from Central to Flag Creek will also eliminate the issues we have on Central Avenue as well, and in the surrounding area. And it'll assist us, once we can expand out into Old Town South, to remedy any issues we have throughout that subdivision.
And on Central too, that's also then of ultimate benefit to the soccer fields at Spring Rock Park, which flood in addition to the residents' low spot there at approximately 46th Street. That also floods the soccer fields.
Absolutely, yeah. The new sewer will capture that stormwater that typically will flood there.
Thanks.
All right, our next one is the West Suburban Mass Transit District Bike Shelter and Electric Vehicle Charging Station. So that, since our meeting, I received the memo that it's, we asked for a bid and received a bid, and the bid is under what we thought it was going to be by 12%, which sounds fantastic. But again, it's another project that is funded by us as well as the West Suburban Mass Transit District. So we pay 33% and they pay 66%. Casey, did I summarize that well?
Yeah, we had a bid opening last Thursday, and the lowest bidder was only a single bidder. It was Utility Dynamics Corporation. It's actually a contractor that was a subcontractor for the 2018 roadway program. They did all the underground conduit work that we had on that program. So they're one we're familiar with. But yeah, the bid came in at $116,193, and we're making a recommendation to award that to Utility Dynamics Corporation. The village's contribution at the end of the day will be $38,808 and some change, and the West Suburban Mass Transit District contribution will cover the rest. So that's our recommendation.
This is for a bike rack across from Starbucks, right? And 2 or 1 EV station?
2 EV stations and a bike shelter. There's already bike racks there.
Okay.
But we want to put a shelter over the top of those. And we also are going to be installing pavers that meet our streetscape standards as well at the base. Right now, there's like a crushed red granite. That was just a temporary solution, so we're going to replace that with some pavers.
And I think the last thing, I don't know if it's a proposal that we need, but IDOT needs something that we're granting them approval to use our fuel tax money for street paving.
Yeah, this is a resolution that we have to pass to utilize MFT funds for our roadway resurfacing project. It's pretty standard. There's nothing special about it. We just have to pass it here, and then the state will allow us to use those motor fuel tax funds for roadway maintenance.
I think we do that annually, right?
We do, yeah.
Keeping things.
And if I could just add an item, the state legislature last week passed an enhancement or amendment to the motor fuel tax law that allows non-home rule communities to adopt by ordinance a 3% gas tax within your jurisdiction to add additional revenue to motor fuel tax. So that's something you'll see a little note from me, next week or two, and it's a policy decision whether you would want to, enact, an ordinance to essentially add another tax. It would be a tax on folks buying gas within the boundaries of the Village Western Springs. I don't know if we have any gas stations. We have
Three.
mobile.
55th Street.
Mobile.
Oh, no, you're right, Only
Just
right.
the
That was the
You're
only
right,
one
that
I
was
was
the
thinking.
The other one's
55th and
At 55th and Wolf. But it's something to think about. It's a policy decision, and they were very busy last week in enacting many types of pieces of legislation that I'll be summarizing and bringing forward over the next couple weeks.
I think that's all I have.
All right, thank you very much, Trustee Fink. So we will put those items that the committee recommended on the omnibus. Moving on to Planning and Zoning Committee, Trustee Jen.
Sure. First, I'm going to start with Foxford Station. This is just a brief update on the board and public relating to Foxford. So last month, the board approved a streetscape plan that will ensure Wolf Road and Burlington are reconstructed in an attractive manner. Some of the work has already been started, so they've already laid the concrete, if you've noticed that, over the last couple of weeks. And more work will be done over the coming weeks. Also, inside the building, there's been plenty of progress. The model is open. They're near completion on several units, and the elevator is functional. The first floor space, which is about 3,600 square feet, has not yet been sold or leased, but there is interest from several professional groups as well as from medical offices and/or restaurants. So hopefully that moves on as we move forward towards, I believe, July or August is the planned move-in date for the first residents. In the near term, Foxford will return to the Planning and Zoning Committee to discuss, to present plans for landscaping for the south wall, which is near I believe it's the Baptist Church, just to make it a more attractive for them, so they don't have to look at a big brick wall. So they'll come to us with some options, and we will review them during our session. Anything else, Marty? Okay. And then just as also a follow-up regarding last meeting's conditional use permit for Spring Rock Park associated with the tennis courts. There will be a public hearing scheduled here at the Village Hall on Thursday, June 27th at 7 p.m. So everyone is welcome. As a reminder, the request includes the relocation of the tennis courts and basketball courts, walking paths, stormwater detention, lighting, and new parking and other improvements to the area, primarily due to the end of life of the current tennis courts and the impact of the roadway expansion and the need to use that area for parking of very large equipment. Following the so the park districts will start this work in August, but first we need to obtain village approval, so there'll be some additional steps over the next couple of months. And then we'll be presented at, following the Plan Commission review, the request would then be presented to the board on the July 8th meeting. Anything else? Any questions?
Ask a question about Foxford. So I noticed they just started to put the sidewalks in
Yes.
on the west side.
Yes.
Will those be available? I mean, I'm a commuter and that's my walk to the train, and it's been very I mean, it's not been great to not have that sidewalk. Is that, I don't know how the village has approached that. Is that going to be open sooner?
They want to
Okay.
get it open as soon as possible so that they can get people safely in to look at the units.
Yeah, okay, so
and-
it's,
Yeah, and so they're planning within the next few weeks to turn the corner there and go on Burlington.
Okay.
To have the whole entire thing open. So it's safer now that there's not people in masons working up
Yeah,
above and balconies
right.
are going on.
okay, so that
So,
was the,
Yeah, I don't have an exact date just yet, but it was
Okay.
within a few weeks.
well, it looks
So,
positive now that
Yes.
they've put a sidewalk in. That's a positive.
Yeah, good first step.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
Nope, that's it.
All right, thank you, Trustee John. Moving on to the Finance Committee, Trustee Rudolph.
Thank you, President Gallagher. For your review tonight, we have 3 budget amendments. The memos were found in your packet. The first one, also from Assistant Director Bernacki, is regarding patching. We're requesting an additional $15,000 for street patching this year. As we all know, we had a rather rough winter, which impacted our streets, among other things. And so it has been requested that we have an extra $15,000 in the budget to address those and also to apply some somewhat different techniques in hopes of creating kind of a more sustainable patch. So that is one of the requests. The second is for a police vehicle. Again, you saw in your packet, and it's, sorry, this one too is moving funds out of an escrow account in the amount of $27,955. And these are monies that, again, have been escrowed and have been projected to be spent at some point. And now we have a request for those funds, which Trustee Sifferman will explain a little bit later in his report. But that is the budget amendment request then is to move those funds, those monies. And then last is the budget amendment regarding the Central Avenue engineering that we heard a little bit more about. These monies, or this particular budget amendment, would be moving funds in the total, let's see if I can get the exact amount correct here, of $324,605 from the Special Purpose Reserve Fund to the roadway fund for these engineering costs. This is a significant amount, and we recognize that this goes with significant diligence and thought. This is a big project, one that is needed and part of an overall bigger plan. And with the grant monies that we get and our commitment of the 30%, a lot of this has been sort of timing dependent to get this kind of all aligned at the right place, right time. So the Finance Committee has had an opportunity to review this in detail and offer this up for the board's full approval on the omnibus. But questions about this? Again, we talked about it a little bit further, but the monies themselves, the Special Purpose Fund, we have had this particular project kind of on the list, so it has been known that it would happen at some point, and so we have known that we would at some point hope to move funds to assist with this particular project to meet our match requirements. So questions on that?
Just wanted to add that the Special Purpose Fund, I believe, is specifically for this type of project where we want to match the grant. So it's well within the purview of that fund.
Right. We can't always predict when it happens, and we try to manage it very, very carefully so that we can, in fact, use it when required, like this time.
When's the time limit on that again?
The time limit.
It's the letting schedule that we
Okay.
have to kind of work that.
Letting schedule, it's May 2020 is when we have to have our pre-final plans to IDOT. And then the project will be let in November of 2020 and construction would happen in 2021. That's a tentative schedule.
So it will coincide with some of the tollway work on kind of that part of town, so just of note, it's,
Yeah,
A
I said
con-
it's pretty close to the total.
yes. It is a sort of a confluence of timing that we'll just have to figure out the best way to kind of work with the residents and the streets and during that time.
may be good, it may not, but it may be, instead of having a prolonged, decade-long project.
Agreed.
Yeah, kind of get in,
As one of
Inconvenience
those,
for a short
as
period.
one of those residents, I think I would rather have it all at once
Okay.
than over time. So I'm going to agree with that as great timing for this. So nothing further to report. Those again would be the 3 budget amendments that we would recommend for the omnibus.
Well, if you're right about the enforcement vehicle, I just wanted to mention that
So, yep, sorry.
the total amount would be 41,000.
Thank you. Thank you for that correction. Okay, nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll put that on the omnibus for next week, meeting. Moving on to public health and safety, trustee Sifferman.
Thank you, President Gallagher. There are a few items that proceed to this group for discussion coming from the Public Health and Safety Committee that met last week. The first item is the request to purchase a special enforcement vehicle that is absolutely necessary to ensure the safety of our residents through an enhanced enforcement of DUI enforcement operations, as well as other special operations that the police department authorize. This is great news because over the last several years, the department has secured a number of funds that it has been awarded through the state of Illinois and the courts by those who were fined in connection with their apprehension on DUI-related matters here in this village. And the best part about it is that these funds have been secured and saved, and now they're available for our use according to the standards and rules of the state of Illinois and these special funds. So there's money there to purchase this vehicle. And we're excited about this opportunity, and we're hoping that this will advance for board approval at the next meeting. The second item appears, and that is an agreement that is in the works between the Village of Western Springs and the Hinsdale Humane Society to provide services that will allow the Humane Society to act as a holding facility for any stray animals that are found running at large in the village by the Western Springs Police Department, or animals seized by the village. The Humane Society will not charge the Village of Western Springs any fees for holding these pets, but will charge the residents a daily boarding fee. And will also collect any license fees for those animals that have not been tagged or have been placed licensed by the village. And they will collect those fees and turn those fees over to the village at the end of every month. That's an agreement that, and those items are listed and subject to written agreement that will be executed between the village and the Humane Society. The next item is a matter that addresses the April 7th governor's signing legislation that raises the legal age for purchase of tobacco products from 18 to 21. So we need to adjust our village ordinance to include the language that raises that age to 21. Attorney Mike Jerusik has provided us with the memorandum outlining this, as well as recommended format for the changes of the ordinance. And we're asking that this group consider this, and that this item be placed on the omnibus bill for our next meeting.
Can I ask a question? Is this mandatory, or do we have an opt-out on this?
No, it's mandatory in terms of setting the minimum age for purchasing. The state didn't address the possession age, but the village is, the recommendation from staff is to bring both the minimum age for purchase and the minimum age for possession up to 21, so there's a consistent enforcement. And it's something that can be enforced by local ordinance violations, so, it can be regulated at the local level.
So it's ministerial as far as the purchasing, but as far as the using it, is this something we need?
This is something that the board, discretion,
Okay.
you need to have a consensus on that aspect of the ordinance. And I believe staff, I think the chief is recommending that both components of the ordinance be enforced, and our office would be as
Okay.
well.
Colleagues, the next item is a matter where the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police, their police traffic committee, has awarded the Western Springs Police Department with first place designation in a traffic safety challenge among many villages that participated in this. This is great news because it reflects the serious nature of the work and how serious the department proceeds with the enforcement of our traffic laws here in the village. And it's one thing to have the facts that support an application, but from what I understand, there are a couple of members of Chief Budd's staff that worked very hard to comply with all of the comprehensive components of this application. And while, facts should speak for themselves, it doesn't hurt to have a little additional prose that accompanies that. And Chief, would you like to highlight the staff that you recognized for completing this?
Yes, my entire staff, obviously from top to bottom, plays into this. The patrol staff that is day in and day out enforcing and educating our residents. As far as the application that we submitted to the Illinois Chiefs, as you mentioned, two officers really took a big role in that. Administrative Assistant Sean O'Connor took the lead on that, and Crime Prevention Officer Sarah Magnuson also assisted with that process. This is an all-year-long process. This was for everything we did in 2018. In fact, we're already working on our 2019 one for submittal next year. And as we discussed at the committee meeting, even though I don't have it available yet, plan on in the next year couple of packets to be given our comprehensive application, which was about 140 pages long. It's going to be given to each of you, and we'll also put it on our website once it's available. It's a real neat way of really seeing what we did and what went into this. It's essentially our annual report for traffic enforcement. I'm really excited about it, and that's going to be coming your way real soon.
Now, there's a recognition event that's coming up in the middle of August, August 14th, and Police Buds has invited members of the committee and village president and village manager to attend that function where our police department will be honored, and there will be opportunities for the department to participate in a number of opportunities to view vendors who will be present at this event. So we're very happy for this honor, and once again, it's another example of how the village benefits from the vigilance that the police department, through Chief Budd's leadership, provides us on a daily basis. That completes my report.
Trustee Sifferman, Chief, if I just may echo Trustee Sifferman's comments, it truly is an honor to receive this first place recognition, and on behalf of the board, we're very proud of our police department and congratulate you and all the members of your staff. Thank you. So we'll put those items on the omnibus.
Thank you.
Moving on to General Government Committee, Trustee Terrell.
Thank you, President Gallagher. The first item on the agenda, and when we meet in a couple of weeks, we are going to be ratifying a proposed resolution to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Illinois being the first state to ratify the 19th Amendment. We are going to make a public commendation about that. I'm going to read into the record, and it's also in your packets, but I'm going to read into it what we're going to be ratifying. Proposed resolution to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Illinois being the first state to ratify the 19th Amendment. Whereas Illinois has long been at the forefront of the movement to provide women the right to vote. Whereas in Illinois, the first women's suffrage association was established in Earlville in LaSalle County in 1855, just 7 years after the first Women's Rights Convention in Seneca Falls, New York, which called for the suffrage of women. Whereas the first statewide suffrage organization, the Illinois Women's Suffrage Association, was established in 1869, becoming the Illinois Equal Suffrage Association in 1891. Whereas also in 1891, Illinois enacted a law allowing women the right to vote for elective school offices. Whereas in 1913, Illinois enacted the Presidential Suffrage Bill, which gave Illinois women the right to vote in federal and municipal elections, not otherwise restricted to men under the Illinois Constitution. Whereas with the enactment of that law, Illinois became the first state east of Mississippi River to give women such right to vote, and is credited with being a major positive influence in advancing the women's suffrage movement in the United States. And whereas on June 4th, 1919, the proposed 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution was passed by the United States Congress and sent to the states for ratification. Whereas 100 years ago, on June 10th, 1919, Illinois became the first state to ratify the 19th Amendment 1 hour prior to Wisconsin. Whereas Illinois led the way for the necessary 3/4 of the states to ratify the 19th Amendment, which became part of the Constitution on August 26, 1920. And now, therefore, the Village of Western Springs declares, we'll do it on June 24th, a day to celebrate the women's right to vote and the important role Illinois played in achieving that right in the United States.
Wisconsin's been chasing us ever since.
Yes. I have two other, not as interesting historically or philosophically matters to discuss with you. Both of these will be on the omnibus in 2 weeks. We have two proposals. The first one is that we are looking at all of our existing engineering services utilized by the village. One recommendation is to conduct an organizational study of the engineering services in the village. We are considering hiring Dr. Greg Kuhn of Northern Illinois Center for Governmental Studies. Heidi and Bill, he's the one that we did the sessions a year ago. We're going to ask Dr. Kuhn to determine the best way to use our engineering services. We have spent a lot of money on engineering services over the years. We do not have a full-time engineer. We've never had this sort of study, and the purpose of it is to evaluate how to best use our resources with the demands that just growing and growing and growing for engineering services. The cost of the study from Dr. Kuhn is $16,300, so it's got to be on the omnibus. Ingrid, did you want to add anything to that?
I believe you summarized it beautifully, so.
Okay. So it's in your packets. Take a look at it. We're going to be voting on it in 2 weeks. It came to our committee, and we both thought it was a very good use of village funds to decide where we're going further, especially as, again, our engineering needs are just going to grow and grow and grow. We heard an awful lot this evening about how much we're spending at Baxter and Woodman. So we need to decide, are we best outsourcing everything, or should we have an engineer on staff? And this study will help us come to a better decision as to how to use those resources. Okay?
It's actually Bennis that we.
Oh, Bennis, are we at Bennis? Okay.
But we do also use Baxter and Woodman and also HR Green too.
Okay. Yes, we have three.
So, colleagues, I'd like to comment on this. I found Dr. Kuhn's services that he provided in helping us map our goals and objectives for the village to be very effective. And I believe, given the scope of this initiative as well as the projected cost, I think that this is money well spent, and I would be favoring and I will support this measure once it goes forward.
And this will be on in 2 weeks?
On the omnibus in 2
Okay.
weeks, yeah. I just wanted to mention too, Greg Kuhn and his staff helped us with our strategic plan. That's the plan.
Okay.
We'll be having a meeting with the new trustees for the strategic plan.
The other item on the agenda for general government is we have the same sort of professional services contract that we're thinking about, Metro Strategies, and what this consists of. It's an organization that will help us find grants for legislative preparation. We have a relationship with Metro Services already. We'd like to extend that formally. We were thinking about an 18-month contract. The reason why we need Metro Strategies is because they are, this firm is extremely instrumental in finding grant money for us and also enabling us to maneuver through certain legislations, and we think it's a good use of professional fees. Their retainer is $2,500 a month. It's my understanding they will be using all of that for at least the next 18 months. We have not had a formal contract with Metro Strategies, but especially with the upcoming tollway, I think the bike path, and am I missing anything else,
We
Ingrid?
have Central Avenue
Okay, that's
coming
it.
up. We also have some projects that we have to finish also. And as Trustee Tyrrell said, that we also utilize Metro Strategies for legislative issues also. They always prepare us for when we have to meet with our legislators, which is very important in getting funding. I'd also like to say that Tammy Wersick is here tonight from Metro Strategies. She has attended quite a few meetings. She comes out to all of our transportation meetings, and she monitors where we can get funding. She even tells me when somebody has actually awarded us money, we didn't even know from the ICC that they actually awarded it, and Tammy saw that information. Also, Metro Strategies assisted us with getting over $200,000 just recently with the Invest in Cook grant, and she's assisted with other applications and so forth. So, and we are looking for some more grants. Hopefully, I'm not sure if they're out there, but for the sewer work that we have, and hopefully we can whittle away that number. So we did that with the underpass. We started out with the underpass, which also Tammy was instrumental in getting the initial funding, the federal funding for that. But we had a lot of money that we didn't think that we could actually secure, and we did in the end. So that project is pretty much funded at this point.
Tammy, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were here. Would you like to address us with what you would be doing, or do you think that Ingrid summarized it enough?
You'd
You have to come up
to
here.
the front, yes.
Honestly, it's 100% funded the underpass, so obviously we're waiting for the final engineering numbers to come in. Deadlines with requirements, and I've assisted with that. But, and we have a large staff that has federal connections. We have a recently hired who can assist with issues with IDOT. Having a retainer like this gives you access to everyone on staff versus
I learned tonight how valuable your services were, so, I mean, Nicole and I had no problem with this moving forward to omnibus in 2 weeks. So, I mean, we'll work out the terms of it. for now.
our invoices do show if we go over, under, and averages out to show, to make sure that you can see it, we're fully supporting what we're doing.
Thank you.
So, Manager Velkme, so in the past, we have just paid more on a project-by-project basis.
Correct.
So we're just changing the arrangement
Yes,
to this.
I just want to make sure that there's transparency in that
Sure.
and so forth, so.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you. I'm supportive of this as well, thanks.
Okay.
Put that on the omnibus then.
That's all I would have from my report.
Trustee Tyrrell. Any other business this evening? No. Then my report, in your packet were a few candidate resumes for commissions. With no objection, I plan to appoint Kevin Collins and Matt Pinkham as members of the Recreation Commission for 3-year terms to to expire in June 2022, and reappoint Thomas Kelleher as chair, John DeBona and Larry Wilson as members of the Infrastructure Commission for 3-year terms to expire in June 2021, and the reappointment of, and reappoint Scott Lewis as member of the Infrastructure Commission for a 3-year term to expire in November 2021. Moving on, there's a special board meeting scheduled for June 13th. That's the final trustee orientation meeting. But first, we'll do a review of the facilities, so all trustees are welcome to attend. That starts at 6:15. I did want to discuss the August board meeting. For as long as I've been sitting on the board, we have combined the 2 meetings into one in August. I know, Elaine, thank you for sending out the availability request for August 19th. I believe 2 trustees are not available. So we're floating August 12th, our workshop meeting, to combine into a workshop and a regular meeting, if everyone is available.
I'll be gone.
So,
Figure out what works the best for.
is everyone else available?
I am.
I'm not available on the 9th through the 19th.
Okay, so we'll have to kind of. So we'll have to poll the board and see if we can find a date that works for everybody. I think in the future, maybe what we'll do is when we set the annual calendar, we will set just one meeting in August, and then everyone. This Friday is the West Central Municipal Conference Annual Dinner at Stevens Convention Center in Rosemont. It's a very well-attended meeting / dinner / social hour. There's approximately 30 communities involved in the West Central Municipal Conference. So it's always nice to visit with the other trustees, presidents, staff, managers. If you're available, please let Elaine know tomorrow. I think today was actually the deadline, but I'm sure they'd be happy to. Your fee would be covered, but if your spouse attends, that would not be covered. I think that's a $90 fee. Terry and I are going, and we'd love it if any of you can attend as well. Just a recap of the last few weeks. On May 22nd, Manager Velkme and I met with Hinsdale President Cawley and the Hinsdale Village Manager Kathleen Gargano to discuss each municipality's concerns regarding the Hinsdale Oasis when the current bridge comes down. We didn't come to any agreement, as you can imagine, but it was good to meet. It was a cordial meeting, and we did discuss the issues. I still hope we can come to an agreement with our neighbor and avoid settling this matter through the legislative process, but we will continue to see that through. Memorial Day, it was nice to see so many of our residents out at the parade, our hometown parade, honoring our war heroes and all troops, past and present. I want to thank especially Clerk Horvath for chauffeuring my husband and me in his convertible. And thank you also, Trustee Terrell, for your willingness to step in at the last minute had I been called away. As it turns out, that didn't happen, and it was a privilege to participate in the memorial ceremony. On May 28th, Director Bear and I attended a pre-meeting for village and state officials regarding the US EPA new standards to improve monitoring and emission levels at Sterigenics, or really all factories that emit ethylene oxide. In the meanwhile, there was also a public meeting the following day that I did not attend. But in the meanwhile, the state legislature passed a bill that substantially restricts the use of ethylene oxide in the state. Many of Western Springs state reps were sponsors of this bill, including Leader Durkin, who I think actually authored the bill, but also Representative Mazzocchi and our senators, John Curran and Senator Glowiak, too, sponsored that bill. So thank our representatives for being proactive on that. Appreciate their advocacy in Springfield. On May 29th, Director Turi, Director Bear, Manager Velkme, and I met with representatives from Senator Durbin's staff. We spoke of current issues and especially the need for support, federal funding support for infrastructure improvements, among other things. Anything else to add to that, Ingrid? On May 31st, I attended the Metropolitan Planning Council program on water issues, which I have a lot of material which I'll pass around as well if you'd like to take a look. The topics addressed included water demand forecasting and potential grants to get that done, partnering with neighboring municipalities to reduce costs for supplies and services, and tackling water loss control through a systemized water main replacement program and/or water meter replacement program, and also a comprehensive annual leak detection program. I don't think I was quite the right person to be in attendance at this. It got a little technical, but I'll be passing the material on to Assistant Director Biernacki to get to the right hands. On June 4th, Manager Velkme and I met with ComEd's municipal rep, Phil Halliburton. We reviewed the 2018 electric system performance and reliability and the 2019 electric system improvements that are scheduled. ComEd keeps a list of critical customers, so if you know someone who relies on electricity for medical support, please make sure they notify ComEd that they are a critical customer in need of that electricity support. Finally, this Saturday, Clerk Horvath and I attended the Fire Academy graduation. It was an honor and humbling to see these young men and women choose this profession that puts strangers first before them and their young families. So on behalf of the board, we are so very proud to be a small part of the process, and especially proud of our Western Springs Fire and EMS department. So thank you. Thank you, Chief. That program for continuing it even in these times where it's more difficult to get these volunteers. You couldn't tell it by, the young men and women there on Saturday. That concludes my report. Manager Velkme.
Thank you, President Gallagher. First of all, I'd like to also thank all of the hands that worked at the gathering on the green this last Saturday. I believe it was a very successful event, and we partnered with the Western Springs Business Association, which was very exciting for us. And I can't list all the names because you are so many here. But I think you all know who you are, and I'd like to thank everyone for that. So we look forward to another year. It'll be good. I also wanted to remind you that the Wolf Road crossing will be closed on Saturday for maintenance. So just so you know that, you will have to go around. There will be detour signs there. I had the pleasure to present a program at the Illinois City Managers Association's conference in Galena with Attorney Jerusik last week. The presentation was on tax increment financing districts, and I can assure you that Attorney Jerusik was the legal mastermind on that program. And I just wanted to thank him for the opportunity to work with him, and I think a lot of the other municipal people that were there were very appreciative of information that we shared with them. So, and also, we had quite a few legislative changes down in Springfield. We are still trying to sort it out because there are just so many of those. I also received an email from Neil James that I will be, from the West Central Municipal Conference, and I will be forwarding that to you also so that you can take a look through it. It is quite extensive. So we shall see what happens there. Hopefully we will see some dollars come our way also, and some good positive legislative changes. And that is it for tonight.
Thank you. Attorney Jerusik?
And just briefly, I enjoyed the opportunity to speak with Ingrid at the conference last week, and it was an enjoyable experience, both professionally and just from a friendship standpoint. As Ingrid mentioned, there has been some significant legislation passed. Some of it hasn't been signed by Governor Pritzker yet, but it's anticipated to be. At the next workshop, I'll be bringing back a short little PowerPoint on the cannabis, recreational cannabis legislation. That's one of the more high-profile pieces of legislation that's sparking a lot of interest at the municipal level because of the regulations that were in the prior draft and now have been, reworked. And so I'll give you a teaser. We have an opportunity to opt out. So for some of you that are familiar with the minimum wage opt-out that the village went through, there is an opportunity to either have recreational cannabis retail sales in your community or not. And I will briefly go through it at the next workshop and kind of set the stage. I'll give you the background of what's allowed under the Medical Cannabis Act currently, and then where things are going under the new Recreational Cannabis and Taxation Act, assuming Governor Pritzker does sign the legislation in its current form. But that is anticipated. So that's all I have tonight.
In that case, I'll entertain a motion to recess to close session.
I'd make that motion that we set to close session for purposes of discussing legislation, or I'm sorry, litigation.
Litigation.
Pending
Pending
litigation,
litigation.
and we also need to talk about probable or imminent litigation, threatened litigation, those two items.
Okay.
I'll second that.
We need a roll call.
Horvath, may we have a roll call? Vote?
Madam President, Trustee Chen,
Yes, or
Pink,
Yes.
Trustee John,
Yes.
Trustee Rudolph,
Aye.
Trustee Sifferman.
Aye.
Trustee Terrell.
Aye.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We are now in closed session. We will reconvene in open session only for the purpose of closing that meeting. No additional issues will be discussed at that time. Thank you and good evening.
You want to go into the presentation?